This is PPC Zone November 2022, and we're talking about creating value in PPC. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales, and I created this event to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I'm here with Veronica Ruiz, a digital marketing consultant who just spoke about the added value of PPC. I'm here with Will Hare, co-founder of Bellavix, who just spoke about how to prepare your Amazon and Walmart PPC for a more profitable Q4. And I'm here with Anu Adedbola, paid search account director at Marin Software and founder of PPC Live UK, who just spoke about why being part of a community is important for your PPC career. Thank you again, everyone, for sharing your perspectives with us today. So to dive in first, Anu, we just heard from you earlier about building community, and you mentioned there's participating community and creating community. So how do you know when it's time to go from being a participant in a community to starting to create your own community as you have with Women in PPC or PPC Live UK? How do you make that transition?
That's a great question, Jill. Because for the first years of being hit with working from home on a long-term basis, I was just enjoying the process of being part of communities and having a lot of admiration of community managers. Like, seriously, the people who really just keep those communications going and making sure that they're coming up with new initiatives that just keeps the community like feeling like they're learning something, they're getting something out of it. But my idea was birthed from a point of view of there was something I wanted that was missing. So it might come to a surprise to some people that even though I'm paid search through and through, and I've been that for the past 10, 12 years, I love hanging out with SEO people. Love hanging out with SEO people. I've done the Brighton SEO, which is this fantastic event that's run by this guy called Kelvin Newman. And I go there, I've made some fantastic friends. And then I've done not just that, and some different SEO meetups, and I've made some really great friends. They are my advisors, like my really good friends. We've hung out, had good food and drinks, and partied in my house. Like, I've made lifelong friends from these communities. And I went to several SEO events after paid search, after the lockdown ended, and I was like, where are the PPC events where we have so much to say? Like, after when you go online, we have our weekly chats on PPC chat. And I was like, where are the PPC meetups? And there's an event that happened, HeroConf, that has a quite high ticket price. And I was like, there's a barrier here. And so to really answer your question, how do you know? When you know. I think, especially, when you see a gap, thankfully, communities, it's not like, we're not creating the wheel again. There's fantastic people who have done several aspects of it. But once you're like, actually, I saw there was SEO meetups, there were SEO events, but I'm a PPC person. And I was like, where's the PPC event? So it's something like, if you see something, if you're already part of something, and you're like, okay, these guys are tackling an aspect of this, but there's another aspect of this that's not being tackled. That's where it's going to be born off. So it's going to be like, necessity is the mother of invention, that kind of thing. It's like, if you see a gap, and a gap that keeps you up at night, and a gap that will not leave your mind. Sure, there's so many issues and there's so many gaps, but the gap that makes you go every day, makes you wake up and goes, I'm really looking for that. I'm really looking for that. I'm really looking for that. That's how you know it's your job to possibly do something about it. So yeah, it's about finding the gap, and and seeing the thing that really puts a fire in your belly about it, because no one will tell you to be motivated or not motivated about it. You will get it done.
And actually, I will say, when you first announced PPC Live UK, that's what inspired me to create this event. I thought, that's such a great idea. But what about for the rest of us who aren't in London? And so that's why I created PPC Zone, to create a global event to elevate different perspectives in our industry. So thank you for being the inspiration behind why we're here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And so next, Will, you spoke earlier, sharing tons of great tactical tips for people who want to grow their PPC on Amazon, Walmart, or the other marketplaces in Q4. And so I'd love to hear from you, what kind of format or tactic should someone who's just starting out focus on? Someone who maybe has a smaller budget, not as much experience, what's kind of the entry-level PPC tactic for Amazon or other marketplaces?
You got it. I would say, first of all, let's talk about a KPI that is very Amazon, Walmart driven, but ACOS, your advertising cost of sale. And I would say if you're brand new to advertising and you have a small budget on marketplaces and you're like, hey, how do I do this? Pick that number that's profitable, that's going to help. So at least you have a baseline that you're manipulating bids against and you're judging your performance against. Outside of that, talking real basic, you would want to launch automatic campaigns. Automatic campaigns, Amazon essentially scrapes your Amazon and Walmart. They scrape your product listings and they say, we think you'll sell for this, and they'll show your ad. And this is how you discover how people search. That's how you get user intent and understand what leads to a purchase. It's also how the algorithm is trained. So Amazon, especially for a new product, I've heard it labeled 100 different ways, but it's the honeymoon period. So Amazon, when they don't know your product and they don't know your brand, they're going to be a little looser with where they show your product based on the information you put on the listing page on the back end, which may be in or out of your control depending on your organization. So it's important that you launch these campaigns, you let them run, and then do some basic keyword research. There's some great tools out there. We use Helium 10, for example. There's something called the reverse ASIN lookup, and it allows us to see what keywords specific products are indexing for, and then we could kind of look at those keywords, extrapolate relevancy, and then put those into lists. I don't recommend having a gigantic list of keywords because you will just run out of budget really fast. Pick 10 to 25 keywords inside a campaign that can be really focused, and use those to kind of drive discovery. And then after 4 to 6 weeks of just keyword harvesting, looking at the automatic campaigns, taking products that work well, or keywords and searches and audience that work well, drop them into your manual campaigns and start building it out. And that process alone is basic PPC maintenance, and it's kind of how you get started. And then for bid adjustments and everything else, know your ACOS, your guide, and what you're willing to spend to be present when somebody's searching for very relevant search terms.
And it's interesting, you mentioned getting started with these automated campaigns. It sounds very similar to a recommendation from Veronica's talk, where she talked about getting started in new markets with dynamic search ads on Google Ads, which works very similarly, letting the system kind of figure out which searches you should show up on based on the information you give the system. And so Veronica, going back to your talk earlier, you spoke about how PPC can create value for a lot of different marketing functions. So in your experience, is it easy for the PPC practitioner to develop a good relationship with kind of the SEO practitioner or the paid social practitioner, or do you find some tension there? How do you develop those cross-functional marketing relationships when you're working either in an agency or in-house?
So I think it depends a lot on where you're working. If you are in an in-house scenario, then normally have found that there is a very collaborative environment there. So you will be working in the same team. You all know what's going on in the business. You all know the main goal of the business, and you are working together through that goal. If you are in an agency, and even worse, if it's just a PPC agency and you are working with a company who has outsourced SEO or has an SEO in-house, then that becomes very difficult. And that is the scenario where it's the problematic one, and it's where you have to work very hard to ensure that you are creating bridges with the business, with the client, and if they have outsourced the SEO or the affiliate marketing, the email marketing, try to create bridges with those third parties to ensure that are all aligned. And I think that is a big task for agencies, to ensure that they become the strategic partner of the client, not just a satellite there that does some PPC, but they are part of the strategic, and they are bringing all of that value that can help all of the other parties. So in-house, very easy. Agency, quite complicated.
Understandably, different incentives and communication and teams and all that kind of stuff. So, question for all of you now. We're in the big Q4 period. So, especially for e-commerce, it's the most wonderful time of year or the most terrible time of year. And though we have experience in different platforms here, what these platforms have in common is they are always changing. So, is there a new feature or capability or tactic that you are currently testing or looking forward to testing in Q4, whether it's Google Ads, Amazon Ads, or something else? Maybe I'll start with Will. Will, is there anything new in kind of the Amazon PPC world that you're testing or looking forward to testing this quarter?
Yep, we currently have a client on board for OTT video ads, which will be featured on Prime and Prime eligible Kindle and all those Amazon type products. This is our first test with something more mainstream media where it's like impression share. We are a performance driven marketing agency, so a lot of our KPIs are dollars and bills, got to make them sales. So this is new territory for us. And so we're excited to kind of test it out. What does it look like? And more importantly, like a lot of our conversations, like the halo effect, what does mass appeal do to the brand? Are we going to see more new to brand customers? And what other KPIs are going to change that are going to help grow the brands? We may not be able to tie direct ROAS to this video placement, for example, but what are some of the other KPIs that we could tie that like kind of build that big picture of what we're working on and long-term growth? So I'm personally really excited to test out some of those new features.
Yeah, that sounds great to test. And what about you, Veronica? Is there anything new you're testing this quarter?
I mean, to be honest, I think the biggest test we're running at the moment is all based on how we're going to use PMax for this quarter, because it has just come in and has a lot of potential. And as you said, this is the biggest quarter of the year for a lot of businesses. So how we're going to capitalize all of the potential of PMax is going to be the biggest one.
Yes, Google Ads Performance Max, I'd wager to say, is maybe the biggest change that's happened for Google Ads this year among the 26 changes, Anu, I believe you said, that we've had during your talk. So what about you, Anu? What are you looking forward to testing for the first time this Q4?
Well, with my clients, I work for Marine Software. That's my like my day job. And what we're doing with clients really at this time, it's the forecasting and the actual working with some of the Google features that we know are working with our clients. So like smart bidding is not all bad news. We'd hate to say. I wish I could say it was all bad news, but
Quote her on that. Quote her on that.
Right. So it's not all bad news there. So what we are in a new phase of how we work alongside it. For our clients, how we actually make sure overall our clients' budgets are actually being spent efficiently, whether it's through smart bidding or whether it's through our marine bidding strategies, that we are working hard to make sure that it works alongside of it. Smart bidding, yes, it can work for some things, but it doesn't work for everything. There's still, I'm sure, something has been said a lot in our community is the fact that Google is not really great with the small volumes. It's not really great with maybe B2Bs and the long tail and the specific kind of things. So those gaps, as I said, that's how you decide to create a new community. It's finding a gap of what the community wants, what the industry wants. And so we're noticing those gaps and we are coming up with our solutions for them. So it's going to be very new in terms of just working alongside the different bid strategies that our clients are still eager to use, because it works, but we know that there's some areas that there are gaps, and we know we can work alongside to make sure that the whole budget works, not just a certain percentage.
Spoken like a true Brit. Mind the gap.
Mind the gap. Yes.
And so my last question for our panel today, I know at least 3 of us here are very active on Twitter and specifically in the PPC chat community. And of course, the big news in the tech world, the ad world, in the world over the last week has been all the craziness going on at Twitter, people leaving the company as employees, people leaving the company as advertisers, and people leaving the company as users. So what is or are the other platforms that you're if any, that you're investigating and kind of moving your PPC conversation to? We'll start with Anu.
Well, I've always been active on LinkedIn as well. I'd actually argue to say that I what's they call crack the algorithm code of LinkedIn, and it's one of those things where the longer you've been using a platform, the easier you know what to work with it. I do have like about 10K followers. It's not a flex. I'm just literally saying I only have like 3 on Twitter. I've got 10 on LinkedIn. So I'm like, hey, you guys panicking about Twitter? I'll just continue with my LinkedIn growth strategy. I know what I'm doing over there, kind of thing. Um, and it's interesting. There are different ways that we can have conversations on online. I also I'm part of a few Slack communities that yeah, we're still gonna keep going on and having fantastic conversations on there. And one thing I do love about Slack, some people are like, Slack doesn't work, but it's really great for that some communities, like shout out to my 2 favorite, like Women in Tech SEO, as well as what's the other ones, like Superpath are 2 fantastic like communities. The other communities I'm part of, but in terms of growth and how much the community managers really have got it figured out how to really grow that community. Those are my 2 favorite that I feel, yeah, any woman or anyone should join if they're interested in content. So yeah, those are like my main areas. And yeah, if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to have you there as well.
Yes, I've also been investigating LinkedIn. I actually started on Twitter to diversify away from TikTok, where I have my main presence, because my TikTok account got suspended for 1 day last year, and it was terrifying. And thankfully I got it back. But that was what drove me to kind of get involved on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm so glad I did. And similarly for me, Slack communities are great. My favorite is the Today in Digital Marketing Slack community, which anyone can join. How about Veronica? Are you sticking with Twitter, testing other platforms? How are you finding your community?
So I think one of my favorite as well is Slack. I'm finding you can find so many amazing communities out there that allows this very kind of personal communication that I wasn't able to find in Twitter actually. That I'm loving it. So I have a few Slack groups that I'm there. Some of them are very local. So I'm part of one called Brighton Dev. So there's a lot of people from Brighton. So you can have meetups in the city. That is beautiful, and then more global ones. So I think Slack for me is the perfect replacement for Twitter.
Got it. And last but not least, Will, I don't believe you're a tweeter. Where do you find community in our industry?
Yeah, I have a Twitter account, but to be honest with you, I just syndicate anything I put on Facebook. It just kind of like vomited up there. So when Elon Musk took it over and chaos ensued, I was like, hopefully my post will still post, and if somebody likes it, yes. But that's not always the case. I'm active on LinkedIn. That's where I put a lot of time. I am considering like YouTube, figuring out how to syndicate content a little better. And then Slack communities. Sounds like a lot of us are Slack nerds. Online Genius, if you guys are ever in the Amazon channel, I will probably answer your question. That is my favorite community, and I'm always looking for more communities. So heard you guys mention a couple. I'm gonna have to write those down after the show and maybe make an appearance.
Yeah,
Definitely. Well, our time today is almost up. Thank you once again, Veronica, Will, and Anu for joining us today. Our next event will be on December 13th with the theme, Let's Get Technical. And we actually still have 1 speaker slot open. So if you'd like to share your unique perspective with the global PPC community, apply now at our website, ppc.zone. To learn more about PPC Zone and our speakers, or apply to speak at any upcoming event, visit ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. You can find me on Twitter at Jyll Saskin Gales. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.